Sex is obsolete. The rise of lab-made babies. Welcome back to School of Soul. I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and today we're going to explore a provocative and increasingly relevant question. Is sex becoming obsolete when it comes to creating life? We've long associated reproduction with intimacy, relationship, and biology, but those associations are now being disrupted by a wave of emerging technologies that are shifting where, how, and why human life begins. Artificial wombs, gene-edited embryos, stem cell gametes, and automated fertilization systems are making it increasingly possible to grow babies without pregnancy, without intercourse, and in some cases, without two people. The science is real, the timelines are shrinking, and we need to talk about what happens to us, emotionally, culturally, and spiritually, when we no longer rely on sex to create the next generation. Let's begin with where we already are. For decades, IVF has enabled people to conceive outside the body. We've normalized fertilization in petri dishes, the freezing of embryos, and the ability to separate conception from sexual intimacy. But that's only the beginning. In the last few years, scientists have successfully turned skin cells into stem cells, and stem cells into egg and sperm-like cells. That means, in theory, two men, or even one person alone, could provide both the egg and sperm equivalent for embryo creation. When you combine that with artificial womb technology, which has already been used to support premature lambs and biobags, the possibility of creating a full human child without pregnancy becomes startlingly real. And this is where the conversation starts to change. Because if you don't need a partner to reproduce, and you don't need sex to conceive, and you don't need a womb to gestate, what exactly is left of the reproductive process as we've known it for thousands of years? That's not just a medical breakthrough, it's a civilizational pivot. These technologies are being marketed as solutions to infertility, as options for same-sex couples, and as life-saving interventions for high-risk pregnancies. And in many ways, they are. There's deep potential for good here. But we also need to look at the trajectory. If lab-based reproduction becomes safer, cheaper, and more reliable than natural conception, we may soon reach a point where people are encouraged, or even expected, to use artificial methods over organic ones. What starts as empowerment could slowly become the new standard. We've seen this before in medicine and technology. At first, the tool is offered as a choice. Then it becomes convenience. Then it becomes recommendation. Eventually, it becomes policy. Could natural conception someday be seen as reckless? Could traditional pregnancy be framed as medically unnecessary, or even selfish, compared to the safer, controlled conditions of a synthetic womb? It sounds extreme, until you realize how often convenience is rebranded as responsibility. And then comes the question of sex itself. If sex is no longer needed for procreation, its purpose becomes purely recreational, or relational. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it changes the role of sex in culture. Historically, sexuality has been tied to family structure, legacy, spiritual union, and community continuity. But in a world where reproduction is outsourced to labs, will we begin to view sex as optional, irrelevant, even outdated? We may not be there yet, but we are certainly heading in that direction. Already, dating patterns are shifting. Partnership is no longer a requirement for parenting. Single parenthood by choice is rising. Commercial sperm banks are booming. And as artificial wombs become viable, the missing piece, gestation, is being solved. The full path from embryo creation to live birth is being industrialized. This industrialization of reproduction also invites commercialization. What happens when babies can be ordered with preferences, traits, and enhancements? If you're already going through a lab to have a child, why not remove a few genetic risks? Why not add in a trait or two? Why not select the strongest embryo, the smartest combination? You're already using science. Why not optimize it? And once this logic becomes common, what happens to the randomness of life? The miracle of diversity? The surprise of a child that isn't picked, but arrives exactly as they're meant to? Here's the deeper truth. Reproduction used to be intimate. Now, it's becoming administrative. An application, a consultation, a selection process. And if sex is no longer part of that process, we lose something that's harder to name. It's not just about the act of intimacy, it's about the energetic joining, the fusion, the spark, the surrender. Sex, at its highest expression, is a spiritual transmission. It's how soul chooses to enter. It's how lineage is transferred. It's how life force is exchanged between partners to summon something beyond themselves. When we remove that from the equation entirely, we may still create bodies, but do we still create souls? Science can build an embryo. It can grow a fetus. But can it summon spirit? Can it replicate the sacred invitation that occurs when two people open themselves in love or desire and unknowingly become vessels for something bigger than themselves? I don't ask that as a rejection of innovation. I ask it as a reminder. Because while labs can assemble life, they can't breathe soul into it. That process is invisible, mysterious, sacred. And if we forget that, we may build a future that looks perfect, but feels empty. Another question we must ask is, who gets access? Artificial reproduction is expensive. It requires facilities, specialists, and regulation. Will only the wealthy be able to afford synthetic birth? Will there be a divide between naturally born and lab-born children? Between organic lineage and engineered lineage? Between people who were loved into being and people who were designed into usefulness? These are not rhetorical questions. They're real scenarios we're walking toward. We're already seeing signs of it. Some companies are exploring corporate childcare models where lab-grown embryos are gestated, raised, and even educated within the same controlled systems. Imagine being born, not into a family, but into a company. Not into a home, but into a program. Imagine growing up without a womb memory. No heartbeat to imprint on. No physical bonding. Just data. Just monitoring. Just performance metrics. The child may thrive physically. They may even be brilliant. But what are the unseen costs? And so we return to the original question. Is sex becoming obsolete? Biologically, yes, if you define sex as the mechanism of reproduction. We now have alternatives. But spiritually, relationally, energetically? No. Sex is still the place where creation and connection intertwine. It's still the portal through which soul meets flesh. And even as we explore new paths to life, we should not forget the one that has held us for centuries, the one that reminds us we are not machines, not formulas, not parts to be assembled. We are vessels of divine possibility. So even if artificial birth becomes the new normal, let us not call sex obsolete. Let us remember that not everything needs to be replaced just because it can be, and that some parts of us were never meant to be automated, only honored. Hi, I am Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and SOS, School of Soul has a brand new series, the AI and Future Technology series. Look, you know the world is changing, and no, it's not going back to normal. Normal is over, and what's coming next is beyond anything we were prepared for. The School of Soul, AI and Future Technology series includes 319 videos on 1. The Download Society, How Data Has Replaced Destiny. 2. Predictive Future. Your next moves aren't random, they're forecasted. 3. Social Credit Systems. The behavioral economy now governs access. 4. Hive Mind. Synthetic telepathy and collective algorithmic control. 5. Nanobots inside you. Medical, military, and programmable intrusions. 6. Grief Tech. AI-fueled digital resurrection and simulated comfort. 7. Uploading your mind, consciousness transfer, and data-based identity. 8. Deep fakes plus AI clones, the replication of reality and identity theft. 9. Quantum humans, the merger of biology with quantum systems. 10. Digital afterlife, where your data goes when you die. 11. Resurrection science, reviving life through synthetic methods. 12. Immortal science, the end of death as we know it. 13. Longevity science, gene editing, anti-aging, and bio-upgrades. 14. Designer babies, engineered perfection before birth. 15. Artificial wombs, birth decoupled from the female body. 16. 3D printing, printing organs, limbs, and even humans. 17. The humanoid era, the rise of synthetic beings among us. 18. Legacy humans, the slow phase-out of unmodified analog people. 19. Smart cities, algorithmic environments that watch and decide. 20. Cloud-based societies, citizenship without borders or bodies. 21. Hackable humans, emotion, memory, and behavior under code. 22. Biometric scanning, your body is your password and your prison. 23. Sex tech, intimacy reprogrammed by machines. 24. Extinction of gender, fluidity, deletion, and design of identity. Every topic is fully explored with real-world technologies, patents, case studies, ethical analysis, and future forecasts. These aren't someday discussions. This is already happening. Join the SOS School of Soul Vault to overstand the future before it's implemented on you.